Hello, today we're going to be looking at the tropics very briefly and thunderstorms to come this week. Looking at the Eastern Pacific, we have a high chance of forming for a first storm, particularly in the 5-day range. And then we have this area of interest that has a small chance of forming just south and east of Hawaii. It could even form in the Central Pacific and be named Hone. It is unlikely, however possible. We've been waiting for the name Hone for more than 1,000 days, so that'd be interesting to see. The Atlantic is quiet and the Southern Hemisphere, but looking at the Western Pacific, we see Tropical Depression 08W, not expected to become a tropical storm, and Invis 97W has a medium chance of forming before moving into the northern Philippines. 08W used to be 96W, but it has become a tropical depression recently, in recent times. Alright, let's move on. Alright, we have nothing going on in the Atlantic, but that could be changing as we continue on. The Eastern Pacific, we have a high chance of forming in the next 5 days for Disturbance 1, and a 50% chance for the 48-hour range. In the Central Pacific, Eastern Pacific crossover potentially, we have a 30% chance of forming, low chance. Going to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, they do not have 97W marked, but they have Tropical Depression 08W, almost moving inland to China, and then nothing else active. For severe weather, we could be seeing some isolated wind reports today throughout the Ohio Valley and Northeast, and a very large general thunderstorm risk for almost the entire eastern United States and much of the West and the Great Plains. Marginal risk actually for Oklahoma. We have not seen too many rains there. Marginal risk for Montana, and a marginal risk for southern South Dakota and western Nebraska. Hail possible mainly in Nebraska and South Dakota. Looking at day 2, we have 2 marginal risks, one for the upper plains and one for Virginia and portions of Maryland and DC. We could be seeing at some of those isolated severe thunderstorms, but notice that no thunderstorm pocket in between the 2 risks. We see this system moving through potentially some monsoonal activity, really quite large and above average, and then this general storms in the eastern United States. Some wind and hail possible in both regions, and tornadoes still low, and then any severe possible in the upper plains once again into the Midwest. And yeah, we could be seeing a lot of thunderstorms throughout the eastern United States and the aforementioned regions. Now going into the SPC, thunderstorms likely in Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, and going into Oklahoma, and then a lot for the Ohio Valley into the Northeast. We could really be seeing some likely thunderstorms as you get south and west of Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, as well as from Maine, and then some thunderstorms possible throughout the southeast too. And then this should die off as we get into the evening hours, of course. No storm reports yet. However, we do have some fire risk, some isolated dry thunderstorms possible, and then elevated and critical risk for the Pacific Northwest and northern portions of Montana. No mesoscale discussions or watches. Not really any expected, but we could be seeing some isolated thunderstorms that could be severe, of course. And then fire. Day 2 and 3 through 8, no areas marked, but we do have for day 3 for the northern Great Plains into the Midwest a small chance. And for the National Weather Service, just some heat advisories. It's going to be hot today, red flag warnings, and some flood watches. Finally, looking at tropical tidbits, let's look at the tropics first. The North Atlantic, we really see some more waves coming off, and maybe even some small storms trying to pull off of cold fronts, but not too much activity yet. Yeah, this could change as we get going further into the month, however. Looking at the European, much of the same. Going into the Eastern Pacific, we see some storms trying to develop. We see this wave behind it, and then maybe even to the west of that storm, we could be seeing something spin up. For the GFS, we see a little bit more bullish. We see a hurricane, and then another hurricane that isn't even marked to the west of it, but not the one going south of Hawaii, and then another hurricane that it wants to spin up to the south of Mexico. All three systems just scraping by the Mexican border and not impacting directly, besides rip currents and maybe some showers and thunderstorms. But yeah, I would take this with a major grain of salt, as a lot of these systems may not even be here the next day. But yeah. Alright, going into the Central Pacific, we see this system potentially developing, and some systems possible behind it, but of course they fizzle out as they get closer north and west towards Hawaii. And then finally the Western Pacific. We just see well, 97W may become a tropical storm before impacting China, and then not really much else besides a hurricane to the south of Taiwan. Definitely do not pay attention to that. The GFX likes to impact Taiwan, apparently. And then looking at the European does not support too much development from 97W, and yeah. Alright, now finally to end off with satellite imagery, nothing too impressive going on in the tropics currently. But for thunderstorms to come, we'll look at the northeast. Some isolated thunderstorms possible today going into tomorrow, and then we could be seeing some of those more widespread thunderstorms, not completely widespread, but more numerous, and then some thunderstorms possible for our region, especially as we get into Friday evening, overnight, into Saturday. A lot of this should be exiting by Sunday, and then maybe we could be getting another round of storms afterward. Yeah. And we see more pop-up storms as this system really tries to move out, and then we could be seeing a more stable beginning of the week, more stable air and less storms. That's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching.